Hetapu, Assalamu alaikum, Namaste, Haru Nefer. This is Kasank Ma Keperu with another video for you. And in this video, we're going to be talking about how to have a loving and lasting relationship. But before I go into the subject matter, I want you to hit the like button on this video. And if this is your first time to my channel, welcome, welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications on when I go live or when I upload recorded videos. Also, we have some free ebooks that will expand and give you more depth and breadth on my spiritual teachings. Just click on the links below. You can download them right away and start reading them. Also, I encourage you to please become a Patreon supporter. As a supporter, you get exclusive access to all kinds of instructional videos on how to invoke a spirit, communicate with your ancestors, how to put together a magical amulet, how to do hypnosis to get rid of pain. And speaking of that, that's going to be the next release tomorrow. Brand new hypnosis video on how to eliminate pain. So if you've had surgery, you have an injury, this is going to be a great hypnosis video for you. And again, it's available for members on Patreon. And you can become a member for as little as $1, $5, or $20 per month. And you can cancel at any time. Also, if you haven't already, this is very, very important. Honor your ancestors. Get your Kemetic name. Many of you are still going out there with a Western name, which is fine. But you should also have your Kemetic name. And that Kemetic name, when it is recited, gives you energy to help you fulfill your destiny. You can go down to the link below, click on that link, and sign up to get your very own Kemetic name. And lastly, please share this video with family and friends so we can get this revolution started and free this planet. Alrighty, hey Magi's, you have to excuse me. I have been up for the last 48 hours straight. So I do this periodically, sometimes going 24 hours, 48 hours, even 72 hours, because when I'm working on manipulating reality, it calls for me to meditate for long periods of time. And I do so, and I don't go to sleep, I just meditate. Because when you deprive the Geb portion of you, the body, of sleep, the subconscious mind, or as we would say, the spirit, is open to impression, meaning you can seed it with ideas, and they'll germinate and then blossom. That is the best way to change anything that's going on with you. So if you have negative habits, overeating, smoking, or you just want to elevate yourself spiritually and deal with anger management issues, this is the best way. You should be meditating on a consistent basis. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about that, a little bit more. All right. But first, let's get to the subject matter at hand. Oh, actually, I have something else. You may notice I have my magic wand, and this is actually my Ma'at feather, and I picked this up at a magical supply shop, and this is my wand. A lot of magicians have their own magic wands, and you should get a magic wand if you're doing your rituals. Sometimes they can be very inexpensive. Other times, if you want them with crystals, gems, they can be expensive. But there was a company that I ordered from years ago, and that actually would get magic wands for students of mine. And also I would get other kind of things as well. And I lost the URL address to this company, and just recently I found it. And I wanted to introduce all of you to this company. I have no affiliation with it, so I don't get like a kickback, but it's a really good company. I've ordered their products. In fact, I ordered one wand and it came kind of bent a little bit, and I sent it back, and they replaced it without question. They even asked me for my money back. I said, no, just give me a new wand, you know? And so the place is called, let me see, 13 Moon. Yeah, there we go. And let's just peruse the site for a bit. And you can see 13 Moons. Here are some of the magic wands. And if you know anything about Hollywood, the industry that I'm involved in, you know, they would make a wand out of the holly tree. All right. And they would go and get actors they would do a casting, casting a spell, you know. And here's some wands right here. These are out of stock, as you can see. They have gems, you know, attached to them. Very, very nice. But the price ranges depending upon how elaborate you want your wand. These actually, the ones you see here are actually very inexpensive, because they do goes up as much as $500 to $1,000. Here's a pretty basic wand here, $115. All right, there you go. You know, so there are just so many to select from. I like these here. This little small picture right there. Now, we don't traditionally use magic wands in the Kemetic religion, but I do an amalgamation of techniques, pulling in from other different disciplines. Use what works. There's no hard and fast rules in magic, and that's the wonderful thing about it. So those are some of the wands. So I digress. Let's get down to the matter at hand. You know, sometimes I really forget that the individuals out there have trouble in their relationships. And when they start citing the problems that they have, I really forget that these are common issues that go on in our modern world. And in fact, I remember my producer, who's white, her and I did a tour of the country when we were premiering my film. And we went to a lot of African-American film festivals. And it's so funny. I remember her sitting in the audience with her as we were screening another film. And she looked at me, she says, "Why are all these films about dysfunctional relationships?" And I had to break it down to her. And I said, well, you know, in the African-American community, that is a major problem. This is why these filmmakers try and deal and tackle with these issues through the medium of cinema. But what you have to understand is that this is not something that's organic. It's been specifically created to create a rift between African American males and females. You have the ruling elite that's purposely putting out subliminal messages and also thought forms, spirits in the guise of herbivores or pendulums to disrupt the nuclear family and to break up African Americans. And they're doing it in a variety of ways. They are trying to incarcerate African American males at a very large number. In fact, there's more African Americans in the prison industrial complex than there are women on the planet. That is a disgrace. And this is all as a means to depopulate the planet, keep them from reproducing. They do all kinds of underhanded, sinister things, like give African American women a little bit more privileges and leeway so they can support the current system and try not to change it or revolutionize it. And then feed them an ideology of feminism to pit them against African American males. And this is why you'll see the dysfunctional relationship that's going on now. But it doesn't have to be that way. And this is why we're all involved in spiritual culture. And this is why you should be involved in spiritual culture, because it can protect you against these types of things. So let me explain. In looking back at antiquity and the way that we lived primarily centered around the right brain way of thinking. So when you entered the community, there were no, in fact, many archaeologists and Egyptologists will attest to this fact, historians, that African society did not have books of laws and rules, because when you entered the African society, even in ancient Kemet, which is in Northeast Africa, which they want to try to call the Middle East, when the Middle East was part of the supercontinent, but I digress. They went and they looked and they said, there's no books that govern relationships, that govern law. So these people must have been primitive, but that's not how it was. See, when you entered our societies, you learn through osmosis. You learn through watching and following. In fact, when I was in priesthood, there was no rules. You had to watch, follow, and become a model for what the community was trying to build. The African American community has fallen short through no fault of their own in this regard, because you have outside intervention, that's really has their foot on your head, and they're pushing down because they do not, let me be clear, do not want a functioning nuclear family. And that goes for whites as well. You'll see how they've got the fourth wave of feminism, how they are instigating conflict between white males and white females by giving white females more privilege, by giving them ideologies such as trust and believe, no judicial system, just believe whatever she says, even though it may be a lie. You can't have this in a real civilization, a real society. So I want you to understand that our ancestors were very, very advanced in terms of how they put relationships together, how they functioned, was of the highest order. So advanced and so morally upright that it baffled Western scholars. This is why you can look at our ancient societies and find no evidence of pedophiles, of husbands and wives cheating and getting involved in all type of debauchery, no porn industry. There was nothing. And instead of these historians admitting that, hey, maybe these people were onto something, they still put out their propaganda and say, well, because there's no books left, they were primitive and they believed in pagan gods and things of that nature, Well, that's not the truth. So I want you to understand, if you're having some trouble in your relationship, if you're having trouble with your mate, that all of this is going under the guise of a pendulum or a thought virus. Now, I don't have time to go into what that's all about. Read Reality Transurfing by Vadim Zeland, who really breaks ground on this issue. But basically, it's like this. You're dealing with the cabal, who are masters of the occult, and they do rituals and send out entities and spirits to influence you psychically, to do certain things, or to act in certain ways that you wouldn't normally. This is why you have relationships just falling apart. And it's working beautifully because, again, they're masters of the occult. They know how to do these things. And you're not wise to what's going on. But because we're talking now, you are. So you're in the know now. So I'm going to do my best to kind of give you an idea of how you can basically tackle this issue and get a grip on it before it goes astray. When I start my broadcast, when I end my broadcast, you'll notice I kind of end it with the kind of same script. I'll say, this is Kasankma Keperu, son of Ma'at. My aunt is the beautiful goddess Heteru. Now, I want you to think, why do I say my aunt is the beautiful goddess Heteru? Why do I say Ma'at is my mother? So let me explain. My destiny, as revealed by the great oracle of Tahuti, is Ma'at, meaning that I must live truth. So that means that who governs my life is Ma'at. So I am held accountable more so than all of you to a very, very high moral standard. I cannot get away with anything. You might be able to have infractions here and there, and you get slapped on the wrist. I do one tiny thing and my world will fall apart, because I've come into this existence with a particular destiny that has to be followed. And because I know what it is, I'm now held accountable for it. But here's the real important part. I don't just say that my aunt is the beautiful goddess Heru arbitrarily. There's a reason why I say that. And this is because when you look at the Chinese astrological system and the Kemetic astrological system, the Chinese being the Bagua, where you have your different houses, you see, Heru governs my career. Heru governs my social life. What does that mean? Heru is very social, flirtatious, joyful, loving, social butterfly. She's out there, she wants to look pretty, and she wants attention. And she corresponds to minor fortune. So when I say that my aunt is the beautiful goddess Heru, I'm referring to the fact that within my astrological chart, she governs those things for me. She governs my career and my social interactions. Now, follow me here. So this means when I go out into the world, I enjoy being social. You'll see me being social. I enjoy flirting. I enjoy the film industry. I have a passion for it because my aunt is the beautiful goddess Heru. And this is a natal, or let me just say, a character trait that is inherent within me. Now listen very carefully. Many of you are brought up in a Western society and you don't know how to pick a mate. And when you pick a mate, you don't know how to govern that relationship in the proper way according to the great wisdom of our ancestors as laid out before us. Meaning this, if you're going to get involved with somebody, it would behoove you to first do a reading on that person to see if God sanctions the relationship. If the reading tells you, do not get involved in that person, run for the hills because you're going to catch hell. Okay? If the reading says this is the person for you, you can trust and believe the word of God that this relationship in some way, shape, or form is going to help you to spiritual growth. Does it mean that you're not going to have any problems? No, you're going to still have problems. But challenges is how we grow spiritually. All right? But it is ignorant of anyone to think that because they didn't do a reading, get involved in a relationship that they shouldn't have gotten involved with, and then they have problems in the relationship, to think now that they can fix everything. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes your mate doesn't respect you, and it's hard to get back respect. I counsel people all the time on that. That's a big issue. And when you don't check that person right away, you give him more leeway until you get to what we call as a Sekert Tem. Sekert, the goddess Sekert, corresponds to lines of demarcation. Do not cross those lines. Respect me. Put some respect on my name. Okay? So it is very important before getting into the relationship, even if you're eyeing somebody. And I think you guys are really good about this because I do get a lot of emails from Magi's asking me to do a reading on somebody they've seen or are interested in courting. And I have to compliment you guys on that. That's exactly the way you should be doing it. You don't just jump into something. You look first and you say, I am interested in this person. They excite my animal spirit, which we call the Twee aspect. Let me go into Oracle and find out if this is something I should pursue. Based on that, if you choose to pursue the relationship, if the oracle reading sanctions it, that is not the end of it. There is maintenance in the relationship. And many of us fall back onto the Western idea of what maintenance is, which is we go see a marriage counselor. I can't tell you how many times people have come to me and had problems in a relationship and then went to a marriage counselor, and all they did was the Sebek form of therapy, which is to talk through your problems. That doesn't work. Because when you speak to someone, you're speaking to the left hemisphere of the brain, and the left hemisphere of the brain doesn't control the person's emotions and their actions. It is the right hemisphere of the brain that does that. And to make a lasting change within a person, you have to tap into the subconscious realm through hypnosis or trance induction. Which is why when I have couples who come to me, which is really the best way to do it, not just one person, but couples come to me, I prescribe a series of meditations. And I have them work with each other to put one another into the trance state. And by them working together in that way, it also further bonds them together. You see, when you are dealing with something of a high science, like someone's astrological chart, that point, you should have a really good idea of the person you're dealing with. You see, if a person is not showing you affection, but they may still love you, and you look at the astrological chart and you see, in terms of interaction, they have a ma'at. Now, ma'at is a very cold energy and not very affectionate at all. And in that case, you can say, hey, it's okay. Because I know that in their chart, Ma'at governs this. So that means that they will never show affection, but they will still love me. See, when you are looking at the chart, you are getting an inside view of their psyche. And therefore, you can read them and predict them. What happens when you put Kasank somewhere where there's a bunch of people? He's going to be a social butterfly. That's in his chart. What happens if you give this guy $10,000? He's going to flip that into $10 million. Why? He's got Haruka Huti, the entrepreneurial spirit, in his chart. This is what we have failed to do, to take these things into account. You must understand that in order to get to know a person, it doesn't come from the traditional idea of a relationship. Start looking at the energy dynamics that govern them, and it will tell you so much. It will tell you so much. Even if the person has a potential of cheating on you, it will tell you. Even the oracle reading will tell you that. It'll tell you that from the get-go. Additionally, what you and your mate should be doing is doing meditations often. And in those meditations, you should be seeing yourselves having a loving and lasting relationship. And you should be embellishing those visualizations and enjoying them, being heteru. Doing visualizations of you two making love. Because anything you take into trance eventually manifests in the fourth dimensional plane. If you were to continually visualize yourself, and many of you do, of you and your mate fighting, then you shift to a parallel reality where you and your mate fight all the time. Now, some couples will come to me and they'll say, well, Hetep, Kasak, we've been doing the meditations and, we're still fighting. This is like a muscle. It takes time. You have to work at it. You're not going to sit down for 2 weeks and meditate and expect a radical change. Doesn't work that way. 60-second hexagram of the I-ching, preponderance of the small, incremental increase. I've been doing this for over 25 years. So I can sit down and meditate and have what I want manifest. But I don't expect you to be able to do that. So cut yourself some slack and give it time. You and your mate sit down. You don't have to do it together, but you both should be meditating often. And then it's what I call world building. See, sometimes I meditate about my mates, us having great interactions, and sometimes I meditate on me and my boss having great interactions, or me and the people especially if I'm going to do a shoot for the day. I don't leave anything to chance. I do a meditation for about 4 hours and visualize the shoot going smoothly. And lo and behold, next day the shoot goes off without a hitch. Because you control the fourth dimensional world. You are God man, God woman. You are a reality generating machine. Now, because you have not built a relationship with the spirit, is what I call it, what you visualize will not come to fruition for a while. Because you have an animal spirit that will resist change. It will fight tooth and nail. So be aware of that. And be aware of the fact that your mate is an avatar. They are a reflection of you. I have people coming to me and saying, you know, when we first got together, everything was great, but now Kasank, he's different, or she's different. Well, you changed your belief system, and in doing so, you shifted to a parallel reality where you now have a different mate. Ta-da! You see, the law of state transfer tells us if you want somebody to change, you first must be in the emotional state that you want them to change into. If I want my mate, she's German. She doesn't have a sense of humor. She's very serious. How could I get her to lighten up? Cassandra needs to be joyful around her. Smile. As I'm in that state, my energy, which they call it the resonant frequency, will vibrationally affect her, and then she'll start to be joyful. I'm not going to sit and with a marriage counselor and say, Dr. Smith, my mate, she has no sense of humor, and it's really troubling. I make these jokes, and she doesn't laugh. And then my mate says, because he's not funny. All right. Instead, I sit down, I meditate, and I see her laughing. I see her having fun. And she does. And she changes just like that. And God shines down upon you when you do her work. You're doing God's work by doing that. God is pleased when you do that. That is a high form of love. To sit down and meditate because you love somebody so much that you want the best for them. When someone is sick in your family, sit down and meditate and see them well. See them jumping around doing cartwheels, and watch how suddenly the diagnosis will shift and they will have a miraculous recovery. This is science, people. This has already been proven. I'm not introducing to you something new and radical. This is documented. You have the ability to heal people from a distance. But they don't tell you, you can also change people as well. You have difficulty with your kids and you're yelling at your kid. Why are you yelling at your kids? You sit down and meditate. Meditate and see your kids acting in the right way and watch their behavior change. You must understand that this reality does not exist. There is no objective reality. You're living in a subjective experience where you are the only thing that exists within that frame and that reality. And because you are the only thing that exists and everything is a form and expression of you, then to change these things, change you. This was the basis of Michael Jackson's song, The Man in the Mirror. Stop trying to battle against an outside force that does not exist. It's ridiculous. And I love it. And some of you Magi's are brilliant. When you come to me and you say, Kasanka, I don't like this reality. I'm going to shift to a reality that I love or that I want. I love it when you guys say things like that because that means that you're getting it. Okay? So next time your mate gets out of pocket, sit down and meditate and do it in front of them and watch. You're going to spook them out. They're going to be like, what are you doing? And you'll be like, nothing. I'm just going to close my eyes for a second and visualize you doing the right things. You will freak them out. See, this is how we built pyramids, people. This is how we travel to the stars and back, tapping into the realm of the subconscious mind. You see, Western man doesn't understand these things because he's left brain, and the left brain only understands concrete information. It does not understand abstract thought process, which is why they cannot conceive of God that the ancient Kemetic people formulated as Amen, the hidden, the no thing. The Greeks came along and said, wait, I don't get this. Excuse me. God is a no thingness. He is nothingness, cannot be seen, heard, felt, touched, taste. I don't get it. I tell you what. How about we say God is a white dude with a beard living up in the clouds? Yeah, I can visualize that. Let's do that. God, white dude in clouds with hands stretching out to earth. Let's give him a son too. We can call a son Joshua. Yeah, Joshua has son. God has son Joshua. They can't handle abstract thought processes. So when we conceive of God and we say God is Amen, the hidden one that cannot be perceived, it flipped them out. So we said, okay, we understand that you people are intellectually challenged. So look, how about this? God comes into the form not of Joshua or Jesus or Jesus, but of Osir, the resurrected one. How about that? Hey, you on to something. Okay, hold on. All right, so does he have a mate? Yeah, okay, we'll give him a mate. It's going to be Aset Isis. Oh, I love you Egyptians. You Egyptians are great. But how about we do this? Instead of calling him Osir, we call him Jesus. And instead of calling her Isis or Aset, we call her Mary. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. Yeah, Mary. Yeah. All right. I'm just messing around. But that's actually what happened, okay? 325 AD, the Roman Emperor Constantine changed everything in the Bible. Now we read the King James version of the Bible. That's what actually he was a pedophile. You're reading a book by a pedophile. All right? But that's a story for another day. You have power over what goes on in your reality, in your world. You don't even know it. Don't fight against these things. Be at peace. And be joyful and have fun with it. And by all means, do your readings. And if God tells you, don't mess with this person, don't mess with them. But God will love you no matter what you decide to do, and you have a free will, meaning you can do whatever you want. But you reap what you sow. And you must understand that. Karma's a bitch. All right? So you get involved with somebody, you don't listen to the readings, and you catch hell. Well, Don't expect your magic to be able to get you out of that situation right away. And more than likely, because you're going through such a really tough, traumatic experience, it could damage your spirit. And you really don't want to have that happen. My brother, may he rest in peace, the affliction, what we went through in the abusive household damaged his spirit. And I'm lucky that I was born under the goddess Ma'at. And then I had a cold exterior, and it could not penetrate that. So my spirit was not damaged, and I was able to go on and to get into self-help, NLP, hypnotherapy. And I was able to work those things out with a lot of meditation and following the Tree of Life program, which was phenomenal, which helped me. And getting involved in, I mean, when I was in priesthood, every ritual, every full moon ritual, I was there. I wanted to work this out. I made it my mission to work this stuff out, so much so that I traveled the country working with different gurus, begging to learn with them so I can overcome these difficulties. And I never looked back. And it's been what we say, i-ching, Kemetic word meaning sweet, ever since. You see, my brother was, of course, it's challenging to speak of this, but it's an opportunity. My parents took a lot of their rage out of my brother. And the toll of that affected him to the point of where he decided that he wanted to take his life. And unfortunately, when he did that, I had just started priesthood. So I was not in any position to help him, and I wish I could have. Because the knowledge of our ancestors saved my life. And it's allowed me to do some miraculous things afterwards. And I never complain. I never show hatred or animosity toward my parents. I know they have transitioned on, and now they are in the inner planes. And I pour libations to them. And I also understand that you are an infinite being. You have no beginning and you will have no end. You will go through countless lives. And this experience that you're going through now is a grain of sand in all the beaches of the world. So don't put too much stock in any trauma or any difficulties you're going through now. Because when you die, they do what we call is a mind wipe, where they take away the memories of your past life so you can start fresh and start new in your new life. Now, there are some in the New Age community and the conspiracy theory arena that are trying to figure out a way around the mind wipe. And they're hitting upon some really interesting techniques to do that. You know, when you pass on, there's a process that you go through. And there's questions that you'll be asked in order for you to pass to different gates. Read the Bhagavad Gita. If you can retain your memory, you can become an honored ancestor. And many of us do. Many of us have some memories, sporadic as they may be, of our past lives. But each time you die, you go through a mind wipe. So I want you to understand that no matter what you have been through, rely on my aunt, Hedaru Hathor. Have joy and love in your heart. She stands for love. And understand your mate from a perspective of their chart, not who you see on the exterior, because that can be deceiving. Look at their chart. There's many times it's going to explain a lot of things about them. And you'll know how to best deal with them from that perspective. As the example I gave, which was a real example, person found out that their mate was governed by Ma'at, and it explained why they didn't show a lot of affection in the relationship. That's not Ma'at's thing. She's got a cold energy about her, but she's very, very loving. She is true love. See, Ma'at gives, seeking nothing in return. Ma'at is unrequited love. Ma'at is sharing too. Ma'at is not suspicious and jealous. No. In order for us to heal our relationships and to work out the damage done to us by the ruling elite, we have to get back to the wisdom of our ancestors. And your ancestors will help you in your relationships. And you should always, as a couple, pour libation to your ancestors. In fact, you should have an altar in your house where you and your mate actively petition the deities for help and the ancestors. I want you to understand that. And my mates constantly remind me of certain things. They'll say, Kasank, remember, you're governed by Ma'at. So you're going to have to act in the highest moral way, showing love to your enemies. I had somebody did something to me the other day, and I didn't really like what he did. And I said, you know what? I'm going to take that L so that I can show him what forgiveness and love is about. And that's hard for some people. That's very hard. But again, I did the reading, and the reading told me what he was about. It revealed the energies that governed that person. You know? It took our ancestors thousands of years to put together an astrological system that is so accurate. It can predict what your children will do for a career. It can predict who you will marry. When I went before the priest, he said, he sacrificed some chickens. I'm not kidding you, he did. And he did the whole ritual thing. He said, Kasank, you're gonna marry two, you have two wives. And they're both are not gonna be from your background. It'll be an interracial relationship, but this is what God wants. I was like, wow. And then he started getting real personal. I was like, hey, hold on, because we had some other people there. And I was like, let's not be airing my business out when you get all these people here, you know. I thought this ritual was going to be private, you know, like what's going on, you know. You get deep into stuff now. Yeah, he kind of pissed me off too. He say some stuff. I was like, why you say things like that, man? All right, I'm shutting this down. Cut. Let's move on to the next take. And that's how accurate they get, man. They get real accurate on you, you know. So, well, I've said enough, and I hope that this really resonates with you guys, and you understand more about the perfect union, how to work with your mate, to get out of pocket. Yes, you can talk to them. You can have that sweet, nurturing talk, but sit down and meditate. You don't want to get in conflict. You don't want to get into arguments. That could be problematic. And if your mate is governed by Sebek, oh God, Sebek or Gemini, they love to talk. They love to argue. So you don't want to go there. All right? You understand that, okay, this person is Sebek Tim. I'm not going to get into a verbal altercation with this person, because I won't win that. So I'm just going to do meditation, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying? So thank you all for tuning in. And please keep sharing and emailing me about what's going on in your relationships. I'm always here. I'm always available to help. And when we were in priesthood, when this is just a little bit of insight of what we did when we were in priesthood, and the couple was having some real serious issues, specifically around maybe conceiving or just issues that they couldn't get along, the entire priesthood would get together one night and we would meditate for them. And you would see the relationship change like that. It was a sight to behold. But again, you've been given a lie that our ancestors were primitive, pagans, and all this. They were very, very advanced and very wise. They charted the solar system. So this is Kasank Ma Keperu, son of Maat and Tahuti. My aunt is the beautiful goddess Heteru Hathor. So in the next video, Amen Ra.